Man, that is, listen, when you need a job recommendation and Sean McVay calls you, he's on your side, hey, you want that guy making a recommendation for you. That is glowing. McVay saying Stafford is better than he thought. And I'm glad we're talking about this, Ahmed, before Vinny Goodwill comes on, because Vinny, like you, a son of the state of Michigan, but unlike you, Vinny is not feeling Matt Stafford, and I think that you are. So tell us why Matt Stafford is your guy and Sean McVay's guy, but not Vinny Goodwill's
What's
guy,
not
who we'll talk with in about 10 minutes.
I'm going to have to ask him about that. What's not to like about it? Now, you say that. I was looking at Pro Football Focus, who grades all the quarterbacks in every play, every position, not just quarterbacks. They actually have Stafford graded his lowest grade since 2015, which kind of like my eyebrow went up like this. I don't quite get that. He seems pretty good to the eye test to me. But it does kind of show that Stafford has been this guy for a while. He's just been in obscurity with the Detroit Lions. And there is a segment of Lions fans who are like, he never won the big one. I was like, yeah, because he played for the Detroit Lions. You know, as a Lions fan, I can say that.
Right.
And now you're seeing Matt Stafford as pretty much we've seen him over the last 5, 6, 7 years. It's just that he's doing it on a team that is built around him, has a great defense, great receivers in Cooper Kupp and Woods. So, I mean, like, Sean McVay, I think you can make the argument he might be one of the top coaches in the NFL as like a motivator, X's and O's guy. He seems to kind of have it all. And so him matching up with a quality quarterback like Matthew Stafford, it's why I picked him to be in the Super Bowl and lose to the Buffalo Bills. But they're just so fun to watch, and it's hard to find a weakness. And I'm loving that Matt Stafford finally can get flip the narrative, as they say, and be the guy that's a winning quarterback and not a losing quarterback with the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, and I think he has already started from a regular season standpoint. We know that the Lions have gone to the playoffs before. They've had winning records under Matthew Stafford. He's been a Pro Bowler. He's had a 5,000-yard season. He's done a lot of incredible individual things. One thing he hasn't been able to do, and it depends. I'll be honest with you, Ahmed. I would use any argument I needed to win the argument. So if I need to say, hey, it's bigger than just one guy, and I'm siding with Matthew Stafford, I could be pro Matthew Stafford. But if I want to hate on Matthew Stafford, which I've done in the past, I can say, well, show me some playoff wins.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go all day long on this. But I think the real story is, the real separator for him will be if he actually does. Like, when he wins playoff games, then you can't say anything about him. He doesn't necessarily have to win the Super Bowl. But if he wins a couple of playoff games with the Rams, let's say they win a divisional round, they win a conference championship, and they lose the Super Bowl, is anyone going to say, see, Matthew Stafford's not a winner? No. The one thing you can say about anybody who's played for Detroit, if you really want to knock them, great players for Detroit, you say they don't win. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a systemic issue.
Yes.
That's much larger than any individual player, whether it's Matthew Stafford, Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson. That's just Detroit ownership, right?
Yeah, they've been losing for a lot longer than Matthew Stafford has been alive. So, as a Detroit Lions fan, I can confirm those rumors. They have been bad for a long time. And the way he's playing with a good team makes you wonder why we didn't hear more teams involved. It was almost like the Rams made the deal, boom, it was over. Now there were some connections there with the new GM coming over from LA, the new GM in Detroit. So who knows, maybe they were talking before other teams could get involved. But I think of a team like the San Francisco 49ers, who are desperate to find that next quarterback. Mac Jones, is it going to be Trey Lance? They want to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. I think you could almost flip those two franchises and teams and record-wise, just depending on where Matthew Stafford is. If Matthew Stafford was on the 49ers and not the Rams, I don't know if we wouldn't see the 49ers being talked about in the same way that we're talking about the LA Rams right now. I really do think the quarterback in Matthew Stafford could make that big of a difference. I don't know if you agree with that, at least in that division.
No, I think so, especially, as you said, that division. Look at them. I mean, that division is incredible. If you have healthy quarterbacks, you might say it's the best division quarterback-wise.
Yeah.
in football. You have Jimmy Garoppolo / Trey Lance. You got Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford. That's pretty impressive. Let me ask you this, one more thing on the Rams. Fashion-wise, since we're talking about fashion with Ashley, let's just continue the conversation. I got to admit this to you. When the Rams first trotted out their uniform design, their updated design, and I know a lot of Rams fans, they had protests, man. They were like, Eric Dickerson came out saying how horrible it was. Everybody was talking about, oh, this is a travesty. I got to admit to you, I love their uniforms now.
They're growing on you.
I think their uniforms are great, and I didn't think, no, beyond that, I'm there. I look at them now, and I think they're better than the classic, Ram helmet and that color. Because when I first saw the color, I said, "Ooh, scream much? You screaming at me?" but I'm used to it.
Yeah, and now you saw,
and
now
the design.
Yeah, the design was a little like the gradient numbers. I'm still coming around on the gradient and transitioning from one color to another. I'm not totally sold on that. Now they're not using it on that jersey right there, but you're right. The bold colors. We saw Ashley with the jacket. That's bold yellow. That's in right now. The Rams were ahead of their time. The Rams were ahead of their time.
Come on.
I'm in. I'm totally sold. I'm like you. I was not in, and now I am in.
See, uniforms. I can talk about uniforms. That's the next show. We're just going to talk about uniforms in all sports. But a team that doesn't really have much of an identity helmet-wise.
Yes.
The Cleveland Browns. I grew up watching them in Northeast Ohio, and they had a little different look last night. Had that matte orange helmet with the classic brown and white stripe right down the middle. But beyond that, beyond the classic design, the Cleveland Browns last night were a running game. This was old school football. It was Browns and Broncos. I'm sure people in both cities were going in the Wayback Machine and thinking about the drive and the fumble from the 1980s. But these teams aren't there yet at that championship level. But it was a great game, and you saw this guy, Diontae Johnson, a third-string running back.
I've never heard anyone named D'Ernest before, by the way. Like, that's the first D'Ernest I've ever known.
It's the first D'Ernest. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you, black folks, we're very creative with the names. We're very creative, very creative. I mean, like, next level. But I've never heard of D'Ernest. That's new. I've heard Ernest. I've heard Ernst. I've heard D. I've never heard like the D'Ernest put together. But let's hear him after the game talking about his big rushing performance and his 17-14 win.
Diontae Johnson to me is just a warrior, great teammate. What he's fought through in his career, and then to go have a night like that and to end it how he did on that third down, I thought was just outstanding.
They just basically told me just be me, man. Don't change nothing. Just be you. Continue doing you. That's what got me here, and don't change nothing, you know.
So what did the first touchdown and first 100-yard game in the NFL feel like?
Unexplainable. I can't even lie to you. Like, I wanted to celebrate, but I didn't know what to do, man. Like, I just yelled because it's been a long journey, man, and just to get your first start and get 100 yards and get a touchdown, man, that ain't nothing but God, man. And I give thanks to him.
You're going to see LeBron shouted you out on Twitter.
Man, you big time. That's big time right there.
LeBron?
Yeah. Are you happy with your game?
Go retweet that.
Man, well, that's my favorite basketball player. I ain't gonna lie to you.
That's great. That's just Ahmed, that's just a great response from a guy that a lot of people hadn't heard of before last night. And it's not just the 146 yards and a touchdown here. I'm still holding on to some remnant of a running game. I think a lot of people talk about running back in football like it doesn't matter. It still does matter. Hey, maybe you don't build your team around a running back in 2021, but you'd much rather have a running game than not. The reason the Browns won that game, sure, they went up big, and then the Broncos made it close with a late touchdown to make it 17-14. But the reason the Browns won that game is because in the last 5 minutes, all they did was put it in the belly of, never heard of it before, Diontae Johnson, and he salted away the last 5 minutes.
It was impressive.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Now you wonder, it's like, okay, can they just plug in anyone on that offensive line of team? I mean, because it's like we've seen it with Kareem Hunt, you've seen it with Nick Chubb, but he was making cuts and moves that you don't see every running back making. And so I agree with you. It's like that's the idea with drafts. You're like, oh, you can get a running back in the third round. They're all kind of the same. You watch Derrick Henry, he's not like anyone. You watch Delvin Cook, he's not like anyone.
Right.
You watch, Christian McCaffrey when he's healthy, no one can do what he can do. And so there are still, like any other position, there are top 5, 10 in the league who can do things that no one else can do and have value. But it really does get me thinking about a guy like Diontae Johnson, who has been on the team, I think this is now his third or fourth year, hasn't got a whole lot of run because they've had some of the best running backs in football. It gets me thinking every year, how many of these guys are in the NFL, or in any sport for that matter, who have the talent, if given the opportunity, they would be one of the better players at their position. And I think it happens probably more in football than other sports just because it's so interconnected. Like Matt Stafford, the guy we just talked about. We'd be talking about his career in a totally different light, his ability in a totally different light, if he played on a different team, a championship team, and was going to the playoffs every year. I mean, look at the moves. And this is a guy that's not gotten any run for 4 years in the league. You can't tell me that if he wasn't a starting running back 2 years ago, he wouldn't be, one of the top 10, 15 in the league. But we're just finding out about him now.
I like the way, it's a good question, Ahmed. I like the way he was bouncing off of people, too. And at that point in the game, what you got to do is pick up first downs and hold on to the football. And you see, we just showed 3 or 4 pretty significant hits there, and the ball didn't move. He was carrying the ball the right way. Look, if he doesn't get his opportunity in Cleveland, he'll get an opportunity somewhere else, especially when you have breakout games like that. Now, you mentioned Matthew Stafford a few times. I'm looking at the time.
Yeah.
We got Vinny Goodwill coming up soon. Okay. So I know Vinny is known for his NBA excellence, but we got to start off. When Vinny comes on, we starting off with the Stafford conversation.
Yeah.
I'm just going to watch y'all.
What's not to like?
Michigan people.
What's not to like?
It's like Michigan on Michigan. Just let y'all fight it out.